very big when they assembled this emergency summit about the need for an independent European security and military. Blah. And when they left, they're all going, we got to really work harder to make NATO. We have to pay our fair share so the United States sticks with NATO. We don't want the United States to leave NATO. We need to work with America, because the reality is once they all sat down there and when the cameras are off, they all turn around and went, y'all got a plan? I don't have. What happens if America leaves? We can't let America leave. America pays for this whole thing. We can't function without America. And then if we really irritate them, they'll shut our economy down. What happens if they put sanctions on us? Europe is going to counter-sanction us. That isn't going to happen. America is being exposed as the single most corrupt nation on the planet. I think we even beat the Ukrainians in scope and scale of our corruption. And the leaders of this corruption is the Democratic Party. Because while the Republicans aren't perfect, and while the Republicans don't have the best policies, I personally like a lot of the policies that the Democrats put out. I believe in clean air. I believe in education. I want all this stuff to happen. But what happens is they use my belief, my desire for clean air, to create an environmental protection agency that becomes a cow of corruption. It doesn't accomplish anything. It becomes a permanent bureaucratic edifice that takes billions of dollars and disseminates it to people who don't produce anything of value, just enrichment. This is how America has been operating. The corruption of this. So what Trump has done is to declare war on this, to dismantle this.
The moment the cameras turned off, reality set in. Europe has no plan. NATO's so-called unity? A desperate illusion. Behind closed doors, leaders whispered their fears. Without America, they're defenseless, powerless, and financially crippled. But here's the real shock. Ritter just tore the mask off Washington's biggest secret. Not only is America running the show, it's running it into the ground. Scott Ritter just exposed a harsh truth. Europe's leaders are scrambling, terrified of an America that could abandon them, knowing full well their survival depends on US support. But the real revelation? America itself is crumbling under the weight of corruption, a system so deeply entrenched that even noble ideals, like clean energy and education, are weaponized for financial gain. And now, Trump isn't just challenging the establishment, he's declared war on it. We've just dissected Scott Ritter's latest claims, but now, let's turn our focus to the seismic geopolitical and military developments shaking the battlefield and beyond. The world is witnessing an unprecedented power struggle, not just on the front lines in Ukraine, but in the high-stakes realm of global economics and diplomacy. Russia is maneuvering masterfully, pulling off what could be the most lucrative deal of the century, while intense clashes rage on in Pokrovsk. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the consequences will ripple far beyond Ukraine's borders. Global moves to remove Russia sanctions, fierce clashes at Pokrovsk. Russia has just secured what some are calling the deal of the century, a financial and diplomatic maneuver so significant that it could redefine the country's economic future. On March 26, 2025, Moscow finalized an agreement that will pour billions into the Kremlin's war machine, ensuring Russia's financial resilience at a time when sanctions were supposed to strangle its economy. This is a defining moment. The battle over sanctions. Will the West cave? According to reports, this deal is tied directly to the ongoing battle over sanctions relief. Senator Marco Rubio, now serving as the U.S. Secretary of State, has revealed that Russia is demanding a moratorium on attacks in the Black Sea, on the condition that European sanctions be lifted. This is a direct challenge to the West's resolve. Let's not forget, the European Union has frozen approximately $200 billion in Russian assets, a massive financial blow intended to cripple the Kremlin's war capabilities. But now, under intense diplomatic pressure, there are growing murmurs in Western capitals about the possibility of relaxing these restrictions. French President Emmanuel Macron has been clear. It's too soon to discuss lifting sanctions. In fact, rather than bowing to Russian pressure, he just announced an additional $2 billion military aid package to Ukraine. But this defiant stance isn't universal across Europe. The fractures in the EU's position are beginning to show. The hunger for economic stability is pushing some European nations to reconsider their approach. Behind the scenes, Western corporations are already preparing for a return to the Russian market. Despite all the bluster about cutting ties, economic reality is setting in. Many Western firms are eager to reclaim lost ground, but Moscow is making one thing clear. Only those who did not actively support Ukraine's military will be welcomed back. Google. The first domino to fall? Even tech giants like Google are feeling the pressure. Over the past few years, Russia has hammered Google with hefty fines, totaling nearly 32.8 billion rubles, approximately $360 million. Despite initially retreating from the Russian market, Google has quietly begun paying these fines. The implications are clear. Big Western firms know they may have no choice but to eventually return to Russia. Not every corporation is receiving the same treatment. British energy giant Shell is facing serious obstacles. The Kremlin is demanding that Shell compensate Gazprom to the tune of $1.5 billion. Unlike Google, Shell is finding the door to Russia firmly shut, with Moscow poised to seize existing assets rather than allow an easy re-entry. Russia's economic resurgence, billions pouring in. With all these moves, it's becoming clear that 2025 is shaping up to be a year of economic resurgence for Russia. Despite the ongoing war, despite the Western sanctions, and despite continued Western military aid to Ukraine, Moscow is set to rake in staggering profits. This is not about minor policy shifts, it's about the very real possibility that Russia could emerge economically stronger despite the war. And what does that mean for Ukraine? With billions flowing into Moscow's war chest, the battle on the front lines is set to intensify. Fierce clashes at Pokrovsk, the bloodbath intensifies. While diplomats and economists wage their battles in conference rooms, the war on the ground rages on. And nowhere is the fighting more brutal than Pokrovsk. Russian forces have launched a relentless offensive, hammering Ukrainian defenses with waves of drone strikes, artillery barrages, and ground assaults. The city is under siege. Russia's night of fire, drone swarms over Ukraine. Just hours ago, Russia unleashed a devastating wave of drone attacks across multiple Ukrainian cities. Odessa, Zaporizhzhia, and Kyiv were all hit, but the most intense bombardment targeted Dnipro. Eyewitness footage from the attack paints a hellish scene. Massive fireballs illuminating the night sky, entire city blocks engulfed in flames, and secondary explosions from destroyed ammunition depots. The destruction is widespread, and the scale of the attack suggests a deliberate Russian strategy to cripple Ukraine's logistical hubs. But Dnipro wasn't the only city to suffer. In Kharkiv, a Russian missile strike obliterated an industrial facility while people were playing football nearby. One moment, life was normal. The next, a fireball tore through the skyline. The brutality of the battlefield, close quarters, combat in Pokrovsk. On the front lines, Russian forces have intensified their push toward Pokrovsk. The past 48 hours have seen some of the most ferocious battles of the year, with both sides pouring everything they have into the fight. Russian assault units have reportedly breached Ukrainian defensive lines in multiple locations, engaging in vicious house-to-house combat. The city is riddled with trenches, barricades, and makeshift bunkers as both sides fight tooth and nail for every street and intersection. According to reports, Ukrainian forces have destroyed multiple bridges to slow down Russia's advance, aiming to disrupt the enemy's supply lines and force Moscow's troops into vulnerable choke points. But despite these efforts, Russian forces are making slow, grinding progress. Massive casualties on both sides. Neither side is escaping this battle unscathed. Russian sources claim significant gains, but at the cost of high casualties. Ukrainian officials, meanwhile, insist that their forces have inflicted devastating losses on the advancing Russian troops. This is no ordinary battle. The fight for Pokrovsk could be a turning point in the war. If Russia captures the city, it will pave the way for a broader offensive toward key Ukrainian strongholds further west. But if Ukraine holds, it could cripple Moscow's momentum and force Russian commanders to reconsider their strategy. The developments in the past 24 hours reveal a stark reality. This war is far from over. Russia is not just holding its ground economically, it is thriving despite sanctions. On the battlefield, its forces are pushing forward, launching some of the most aggressive attacks in months. Meanwhile, Ukraine faces a brutal test of endurance. The defense of Pokrovsk is a fight for survival, while Kyiv battles to maintain Western support amid shifting economic interests. The question now is simple. Will the West hold the line, or will economic pragmatism lead to the gradual removal of sanctions? And if sanctions do ease, what does that mean for the war? One thing is clear. The coming months will be decisive. The financial war and the military war are colliding, and the outcome will shape not just Ukraine's future, but the balance of power for years to come.